Well, hello and welcome to Alamance County Talks Politics. How would you feel if you lived in an area where there was the constant sound, the noise, the barrage of guns being fired in your community? How would you feel if you knew that certain projectiles had left that range and entered into surrounding properties, and one of those, a home? Well, about a year and a half ago, the Alamance County Commissioners were faced with such an issue surrounding the RAD Range and the neighboring community. They decided they would try to put forth an ordinance that would regulate the discharge of firearms in Alamance County. And once it was put together, it went before the Alamance County Commissioners and it was voted down by a vote of 3-2. Those who voted against the ordinance was John Paisley, Bill Lashley, and Pam Thompson. Those who voted for the ordinance was Craig Turner and Steve Carter. But now, in the last county commissioners meeting, November the 18th, 2024, the community has come back. They are back in the meeting and asking for some type of relief. What we're going to do is we're going to listen to the comments made by some of those living in the community, and then we're going to listen to the comments of the commissioners and the county attorney. Well, let's get into this. Well, now we are going to enter the meeting that took place on November the 18th, 2024, where the community, people from the community, go before the county commissioners once again. If you would like to see the first video that I made from previous comments made by people in the community and the vote by the county commissioners, the 3-2 vote, go and watch the previous video on this. This is the second video. Now let's get into the county commissioners meeting and listen to what the community has to say. And while you're listening, you decide what you would like to see happen. You decide whether you could deal with this type of noise, this type of fear of possibly being shot living so close or living in the area close to the gun range. So let's enter the meeting and then we'll make comments along the way.
Good evening. My name is Lee Hicks, and I live at 950 Border Lake Trail in Burlington, North Carolina. I'm here tonight to speak about the RAD gun range located on Jim Barnwell Road. From my home, the gun range is approximately 7/10 of a mile away. I want to make it clear that I did not move into this community recently, nor am I here today as someone trying to change the character of a neighborhood I just arrived in. I have lived in this area for nearly 25 years. In this community, which is made up of residential homes, farms, and churches, was once a peaceful place. But now with the gun range operating here, it is being forced to change. And unfortunately, that change has not been positive for the people who live here. From the start, there has been a lack of respect for our community, but I don't need to go into every instance of that disrespect. There are enough people here tonight who can share their own personal experiences. However, I do feel it is important to highlight a few of the concerns that have directly impacted my family and my neighbors. For years, I have contacted the Alamance County Sheriff's Office to report the ongoing noise issues from the gun range. The shooting happens 7 days a week, often into the evening, and many times well past sunset. It's not just shooting. There have been multiple instances of loud explosions, including binary explosives, which rattle our homes and disrupt our lives. Just last week, as I returned home from work, I experienced 3 separate explosions, each one so powerful it rattled the pictures on my walls. My border collie was terrified. She ran and hid in fear. I even had to purchase a GPS tracking collar for her because she often bolts when the explosions and gunfire start. I want you to understand how constant and intrusive the noise is. Last week, I was laying in the bed with the television on around 8:30 p.m. when the noise started again. I contacted the sheriff's office, and just as a few may have seen, I recorded a video and posted it to social media. I want everyone to hear for themselves what we're living with on a daily basis. The constant sound of gunfire and explosions has made our once peaceful neighborhood feel like a war zone. Most of you may not fully understand what we're going through because you don't live here. You haven't had to endure this constant disruption. We're a community that has always been welcoming to new neighbors, but it's hard to maintain that spirit when someone comes into our community, shows no regard for the well-being of the people who already live here. When that happens, it forces change that none of us asked for. I'm asking for your help tonight. I'm not just speaking for myself, but for the many neighbors who are suffering the same way. We want to see a solution, one that allows us to restore the peace and quality of life we once had. This isn't just about noise. This is about our homes, our families, and our quality of life. I urge you to take this seriously and look into ways to address these concerns. We deserve the peace and quiet that our homes, farms, and churches once provided.
I'm Fargus. I'm the pastor of Deep Creek Baptist Church, 1753 Deep Creek Church Road. I also live on 1907 Deep Creek Church Road. I'm blessed to be right across the pasture from our good friends at the RAD Range. As a church that began in 1935 there in the community, we've always respected the neighborhood. I have people that when we have problems, when we think there's drug dealing going on or different things, they'll come to me and I'll go to the sheriff and he handles it. But this RAD Range, I've talked with the owner. I had to look his name up because I honestly just call him a liar because of how he yields to tell the truth to me. Rudy Cortese. He was running for public office and then he wanted to be real nice. And I said, there's no way I could vote for you. He said, why not? I said, you all disrespect this neighborhood. Not only that, it's dangerous. We're trying to conduct service on Sundays, Sunday night, Wednesday night. We have revivals. We have special services. We have funerals. Lord help if we have a funeral and there's someone that had committed suicide and you're standing out at the grave and have to hear a war zone. I have a man in our church that fought in Vietnam. He lost most of his platoon. He has a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. This man told me one day as he was standing at the front door of the church right after service, and he said, you know what, it brings back memories of Nam. He said, that's hurtful. And I could see the agony in his face. And I've spoke with the owner multiple times, and he's been dishonest multiple times. He said, what would please y'all? He said, what's the biggest deal? I said, well, the biggest thing is it disrespects the fine folks in this neighborhood. They didn't move into your neighborhood, you moved into ours. And I said, I don't care about all this grandfathered mess. It's a shooting range in what's basically now a residential neighborhood. We might as well face facts. It's not country anymore like it used to be. And he promised me on 2 different occasions, he said, we'll stop shooting then on Sunday mornings till after your service. And if you have a funeral or something else going on, we'll stop shooting for that too. That lasted 1 week. 1 week. I don't take lightly being lied to because as pastor of Deep Creek Baptist Church, I represent Jesus Christ. That church is a church of our holy God. And when you lying to me, you're lying to God. And he's disrespected us. It's a shame when our grandchildren can't even stand that play outside anymore. I have a grandson that has a small amount of autism. He can't even be out in the yard anymore when the shooting's going on. He covers his ears and he cries.
Name is Butch.
Now, what do you think about those first 2 comments from these are neighbors, one's a pastor in this area? I mean, the first one was talking about sitting in his home and hearing gunfire, and then he heard some explosions that were loud. And it brought the pictures are on his wall. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'll hear some more. So let's continue on.
I live at 2750 White Swan Drive. My property is about 30 yards from where they shoot high-powered rifles. If you would refer to number 1 on your sheet there, this is a 50 caliber bullet that was pulled out of Allison's bedroom wall. If you turn the page,
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, pulled out of what?
this is a 50 caliber bullet that came out of the Allison's bedroom wall, shot by the gun on the next page. The gun.
So he talks about a bullet, a 50 caliber bullet that was pulled out of the wall of a person. I guess their last name is Allison, and he's actually going to show or at least talk about the name of the gun. And it's a 50 caliber is a pretty powerful bullet, that would shoot that type of bullet it's going to carry a punch. And listen to what he continues to say.
Called the neighbor hater. On the back of number 1 is the sheriff's report of the rifle being used to shoot the gun, and it went into the Allison's home. If you look at number 2, this is the elevated berm in the front yard of the gun range. If you notice, the berms are way below the rifles. They set their targets on top of the berm. When they shoot high, they're aiming directly at the Allison's house, which the bullet went into. If you turn the next page on number 2, you'll see how much higher the rifles are than the dirt berms are. Now, I'm sitting out in my car on Fawcett Lane. Any car going down Fawcett Lane could be shot if they turn the gun or mishandle the gun. If you look at number 3, these are the guns they're renting to the general public. Get 50 shots for $105, 50 rounds for $90. Is this even legal? Are these people, is the general public qualified to be shooting these guns? If you look at number 4, see that no trespassing sign? We put those up on Howard Dunn's property to try to keep the gun range off of his property. Well, the gun range, Rudy, took all the no trespassing signs down and removed them. We wanted the shooters to know that they were shooting on someone else's property, but Rudy took the signs down. If you look,
I mean, if somebody comes on your property and takes something down, I mean, there's got to be some type of recourse. You should be able to file charges. If you can prove it's them, you should be able to press charges against somebody. If this is the case, if this happened, then you should be able to press charges. I would also assume that the 50 caliber shot that went into the home, I mean, this is problematic. I mean, that could have killed someone. That's troubling. And let me say this. I should have said this at the outset. I am a strong Second Amendment supporter. Strong, very strong. And I doubt there's anyone any stronger. It may be, but I'm pretty strong on the Second Amendment, our right to bear arms. But in this situation, this is posing some serious issues, and I think is going to need to be addressed a little more closely, and taken a lot more seriously by those who are in the seat of authority to be able to do something about this. But we'll continue on, and we'll get to that point in just a little bit. Listen to what Butch continues to say.
look on the next page, you'll see this. The sheriff and I were just out there 2 Wednesdays ago. You see the fresh bullet hole in one of Mr. Dunn's trees. Literally thousands of bullets are shooting into his trees. They're mowing the forest down. They're shooting down trees. Look on the last page of number 4, and you see more trees that have been shot up and shot down. The tops are missing on them. If you look at number 5, there's your man right there who's selling tannerite. All these explosions are from the tannerite he's selling that shakes our homes, cracks our concrete, rattles our windows. If you look on the next page of number 5, there he is talking about shooting the automatic weapons. Who knows who's shooting those things and if they're qualified. If you look on the number 5 on the back page, the fire that was started by the RAD gun range and the fire report. This is more, our lives are more important. You got to listen to this. If you look at number 7, the last page, then we'll skip the alcohol consumption.
I'm sorry, but you're out of time.
Here is the rules on the very last page for North Carolina gun ranges. 200 feet from property lines, 1,320 feet away from occupied dwellings. We need some laws to be enforced that already exist. I would like to say that we went to mediation and agreed to pay half the fee to have a gun range professional see if they could make that a safe gun range. Rudy Cartassi refused.
And you know, I just love it, Butch, when he tells you, when Steve Carter tells you you're out of time. Listen, we are citizens, and they are the elected officials. So I appreciate you saying what you need to say, especially enduring the situation that y'all are enduring. Projectiles leaving the gun range and mowing down Howard Dunn's the trees on on his property. There's got to be something that can be done to stop that. I mean, that would make you fearful of going outside and doing anything, as you'll hear in just a moment. Walls are rattling from the powerful explosions from that the whatever they're blowing up out there, and then bullets, projectiles leaving the range and entering a home, and also shooting down the trees that are right now blocking the bullets from proceeding on into someone else's property and possibly causing damage and even maybe injuring or taking a life. This is you put yourself in a situation. You can sit here and talk about it, but until you go over and listen to it all the time, listen to it like they're listening to it, you don't really have much knowledge or understanding about it. But let's continue to listen to the next neighbors.
He would not let us make it a safe one.
My name is James Walker. I'm a resident at 2418 Miss Blanchard Road. I came here this evening to let you guys know that I have livestock on our property, and the loud explosions and the consistent gunfire, it is just absolutely annoying. And our horses, with those explosions, the gunshots, I guess they've gotten used to it over the time, but those explosions, we've had several instances of them busting out of the fence, having to track them down. I work sometimes in Greensboro and having to get calls from neighbors and stuff to come try to get my livestock handled back in and everything. It's just been a nuisance. So would love for you guys to see about doing something about that, please. Thank you.
My name is Hudson Faulkner. I live at 2449 Mrs. Blanchard Road. Like others have said, our houses shake. I was in my shop Saturday when they had tannerite explosions. My whole shop shakes. My doors shake. I have cracked concrete, which I believe is from that. It was at one time a peaceful neighborhood. I'm the 6th generation to live on our road. And I would like for it to keep going, but because of this range, why would you want to live there? Your house shakes, your dogs and animals run off. It's just, we've went from local, everybody's, happy, great community, to our biggest issue, fighting 24 hours a day, is this gun range. Before I came here, just competitive, repetitive machine gun fires on the way here tonight. I just think something's got to change. Thank you.
Scott Sharp. I live at 1873 Jim Barnwell Road. I'm going to pivot from what I had planned because I don't want to lay more soil on top of a grave that's already set a firm foundation here. We started out with a prayer, and I thought that was very good. When we pray at home, we hear gunshots. When our grandkids are here, we hear gunshots. When we try to sleep during the day because we might have to work at night, we hear gunshots. Now, I was in the military, so I'm a proud veteran. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe many of the people at the gun range are great people trying to protect themselves. But the laws of nuisance, which it's been since the 80s, since I've been in college, does not worry about grandfather clauses. It worries about what's happening. And it's a nuisance. We've tried to be good partners. Matter of fact, this is not the only business that's been there. There's been restaurants there. There's been a church there. We've partnered with that businesses. We've mowed their yard before. We baled their hay. We fixed the fences. We can't partner with this one. We're struggling. We feel that we have no help. We don't know what to do. We can't let our kids play. We know ricochets are happening. We can hear them. They go over our head. He won't claim it. We can't defend it because we can't find it. I'm asking you to understand that there may not be laws that govern his grandfather clause, but there are laws for public and private nuisances that should be addressed, because I've been told in business, You should attack opportunities before they can become problems. This is an opportunity that I'm afraid is going to turn into a problem, so much so that maybe an animal will get killed, a human may get killed, because shrapnel doesn't care. It just is going to find where it's going to find. And I appreciate your time, and I hope you listen to the foundations that we put forward and not just think we're complaining residents. We're just trying to protect what may happen if we don't do something about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Terry. I'm a resident of Alamance County for 8 years. I moved here from Durham County. You can imagine the transition that could take. I've been a tenant of one of you commissioners for the last 8 years that I've actually lived here. Recently, my wife Tori and I purchased a property. We purchased it in northwest Alamance County. We knew our friend Butch. We've known him for 8 years. We've watched him live peacefully out there, and we wanted to be a part of that community. We loved it out there. We purchased a piece of property out there a year ago, knowing what was going on across the street, with hopes that someone within power and someone with knowledge and laws and the ability to uphold laws could make changes for this. I want to go back to what the last gentleman said too. I heard in your prayer two very distinct things. I was raised in a Christian household on a dairy farm, guys. All right, I know about gunshots going off in the woods, occasional gunshots. I heard you guys ask for prayers for the community, and I heard you ask for prayers for safety. I got to tell you something. My wife and I purchased this property, which is 2528 Fawcett Lane. If any of you go live in a neighborhood, it's the old scary cabin sitting right across from the gun range, all right? It ain't going to be scary no more. It's 1935. It's been around as long as anything out there. Original owners of Fawcett lived there. It's a Fawcett property, okay? And I just cannot, for the fathom of me, my wife and I work out there on the weekends trying to improve this property. Okay, we have moved wood. We have moved trash. We have moved things. We have cleared that lot and made it better for your community. Can I hear that? 10-4. All right. You know what scares the hell out of me? My wife mowing grass in the front yard, and I can see muzzle blasts coming off of that long range. I can see the blast off of it. I can feel it in my chest. And to have the thought of her out there on a lawnmower mowing that lawn and fearful for her life and mine scares the hell out of me. And you guys have the opportunity to do something about this. Do any of you guys do your own lawn work? Do y'all plant flower beds? Do you do leaf work? Do you rake? Do you have to do any of that with earplugs in to gain some kind of sanity? I'm going to close this with one more thing. My friend Butch, who I've known for 8 years, laid back, cool as a cucumber. You know what I've never seen? I've never seen him more agitated and irritated during the day and in the evenings when he's walking around trying to talk to us like this because the concussion is affecting his mental capabilities and his health.
Closed session motion for later, but I know a lot of folks behind me have questions.
Okay, so that concludes the comments by the neighbors. I'd like for you to, once you finish this, I'd like for you to determine what steps would you like to see happen if you lived in a neighborhood like this. But now we're turning our attention to the comments of the county commissioners and the county attorney as to see how they will proceed in getting this issue resolved. Let's listen to see what they decide and see if you'd be satisfied with it.
Questions about shooting and ranges, and the board had asked for me to have a back and forth and an update with you all on that. I think it's most appropriate if I answer your questions and give you that information in open session. So I want to take just a second to go ahead and give you some information about the lay of the land as it stands in Alamance County as to shooting ranges, and then I can entertain any questions you might have. I don't want to speak too specifically about some of the concerns that have come up tonight just because I'm not fully...
Can everybody hear what he's saying?
Yes, sir.
Everybody can? Okay.
Okay, good. I'm not totally up to speed on the nuances of the situations that have been brought up, so I don't want to speak to those necessarily, but I want to remind the board a couple of things. So there's a state law, 14-409.46, that deals with shooting range protection. That is a state law that says that whatever noise ordinance is in place when a range begins operation is the law that applies to that range throughout the course of its operation as it relates to noise and noise pollution. So if a range opened, let's say in 2021, at that point, our county ordinance at that time, the most recent adoption of it was in 2019. Our board adopted a new noise ordinance in 2022 that would be in place as to any range that opens now. And that state law deals mostly with noise and noise pollution, not anything else. So nothing related to reckless fire, endangerment, nothing like that, just noise. There is, however, not a state law that deals specifically with the shooting of rounds onto a person's property unless it goes into a building or a vehicle. So it's not to say that you can't make an argument about damage to property for having damaged someone's trees, their real property, but there's not a specific violation that says you fired a round onto my property from your property. If the board recalls, last year we entertained a conversation about making that a violation of law under county ordinance. That effort was read a few times, revised several times, and didn't pass. But Commissioner Carter is correct. Several counties do have a shooting range ordinance that outlines setbacks, noise, things like that. If the county were to want to entertain an ordinance like that, that could be an option as relates to enforcement as to ranges that would open after the date that we adopt that ordinance. It wouldn't apply necessarily to any ranges that were in effect at the time the ordinance would be adopted.
So therefore, what he's talking about now would not affect this current situation. And in a way, I think I'm concerned that if you gave the county or certain people that authority, if you get the wrong people to be a sheriff or on the county commissioners, they could set it up to where there will be no gun ranges, and where gun ranges, if it were to be gun ranges, it would be more difficult to get one. And you don't want to do that. You want to encourage gun ranges. You want to encourage them in the right places, the right locations. So, I think that's what he's bringing up is good information.
So that's pretty much the lay of the land. Oh, I also want to make sure that the board knows there's not, that I can find, any federal or state guideline that deals specifically with the way that a range has to be set up, that requires inspections, requires certain safety standards. I think there's some confusion because the state actually operates several shooting ranges that the state owns and maintains and operates through its wildlife division. There are laws on the books that apply to those ranges and require certain things, but that doesn't mean that those laws apply to other private or other commercial ranges in the state. So I hope that gives you kind of an overview of where we are. I'm happy to entertain dealing with or looking at specific concerns moving forward, but that's where we are right now, and I'll take any questions from the board.
We had one of our attendees present us with some information on North Carolina shooting range regulations.
Yes.
You have a copy of that, I believe?
Yes.
I would assume that it's under the enforcement provision of the sheriff's department to enforce that, and we've checked these provisions out.
Yes. So I don't want to disparage anyone who brought materials for us to review, but I'm trying to find the page. I looked at that earlier because I was curious. This is the last page. It looks like a Google.
I thought that was pretty kind of County Attorney Stevens to say that. He didn't want to disparage any information that a person brought before them, but I think they get into the discussion of the legitimacy of a Google search at times.
It was under tab 7, last page on tab 7.
Yeah, tab 7, page 2. If you look at the top, it says AI overview. This is what returned from, it looks like a Google search, and it says in North Carolina, shooting range regulations include. It is entirely possible that there are local governments in North Carolina that have those regulations in place. There is not, that I know of, a state law that requires those things. Unfortunately, this is not what happens when you trust Google results. That is not a state law. There may be local governments that have adopted those standards. It could be something that we decide to adopt. But I'm not sure that anything here cites specifically a statute that I was able to find. And I did look at that while we were having the meeting. And I'm not trying to disparage anyone. I'm just saying that I've checked this. I can't find any statewide applicable standards that look like these. Again, I think some of the confusion comes from the fact that the state actually owns and operates ranges, and it has a state law that applies to those ranges. But that's not what we're talking about in Alamance County. One of those facilities does not exist here.
May I say something? Those rules are for safety.
Right, yeah, we know.
That's what we're looking for. We're looking for safety.
Okay, Mr.
I certainly think we probably need to look at resources and other examples of best practices if we decide to adopt a shooting range ordinance. But again, some of that's going to require us to look at land use as part of that process.
Well, and to be perfectly honest, 200 feet from any other property line, I think is kind of tight, or kind of, maybe not enough. But maybe we can look at incorporating, if we look at a provision such as this, we can look at incorporating something similar to this in our.
If you recall, we talked about shooting ordinances, and some counties have those. I believe both of the counties to our west and our east have a shooting ordinance that requires the person who shoots to be a certain number of feet from an occupied or other dwelling, unless they have the permission of the person who
Right.
owns or is occupying the dwelling to shoot. We don't have that in Alamance County.
Well, I have talked personally to planning board members and asked them to at least address this issue. Mr. Vines, you were one of the ones that I talked to. So planning board hopefully will look at this and make recommendations in the future.
We can certainly do that if the board would like. I'm happy to draft and redraft, and we can consider ordinances if that's what you would like to do. I'm happy to answer any more questions that you might have as well.
Could the audience ask the question?
No, sir, I'm sorry. You can during our break, yes, sir. All right, you have a further
Do what?
business
Tree shot
transaction.
up, berms on splitting the property, there's been a survey.
They're moving the property lines.
They're moving the property lines and stuff like that themselves where they've had, the property marked off, who's on one side, they moved the property line. There was a fire that set, or fire ran about 2 acres, burned down there. And it's really a mess. And I can tell you, Rudy, ain't gonna listen to a doggone thing.
You can make an ordinance, it won't matter.
Well, I don't.
So they just basically said that apparently there's a moving of the property lines out there. I need to figure out who's moving it, or if they're having challenged surveys or something like that. I don't understand that. But according to Terry Johnson, he says Rudy ain't gonna listen to anything. Rudy's gonna do whatever he chooses to do, and doesn't sound like he's open to reason at this point. And so let's continue, and then we'll move on to the next phase.
Address specifics related to circumstances or businesses, but I will just say that I'm not saying, and I've never said, that shooting ranges are exempt from the law and above the law. There are certainly things that could be criminal. They could be civil causes of action that might exist as to some of the businesses that have been discussed. But they're not necessarily things that apply to the county's ordinance making ability. That's kind of what we're here to talk about now. Noise is the most common complaint that I've heard, and I wanted to make sure that we address that.
Safety?
Bullets leaving the gun range is what we're concerned with.
So here you see that the last words that they were able to say were they were concerned about safety. So their biggest concern is safety. And even Bill actually went on to say that this is going to have to be addressed. You're probably going to have to look at some type of countywide zoning. John Paisley spoke and said that he's asked the planning board to look into it. Steve Carter has asked the attorney, the county attorney, to give us that information that he just gave us. And I don't think Pam or Craig, which he's moving to his judgeship, said anything. But what do you think about this, about a gun range in your community? If you were there, you live there, and you've heard the testimonies of those who live in the community, what would you hope that would happen? Well, I'm going to take you now to a county commissioner meeting, and I believe his name is I know his last name. I think his last name's Young. I believe it's Jim Young. I can't remember it, but I think that's the name. He's like I'm not sure if he introduces himself in this one, but he's like the president, I believe, of the Durham Pistol and Rifle Range or something of that nature. And he says he's in Alamance County, and I think his words are very interesting to listen to. I think he delivers wisdom in this area. And when he finishes, I'll come back and give some closing thoughts.
My name is Jim Young, and I'm here as a representative of Durham Pistol and Rifle Club. I'm the president of the club. I don't know the number. It's Jim Minor Road, South Jim Minor Road, Hall River. And I'm just here representing my members because, you know, anytime there's any kind of new firearm registration or guidelines or anything, you know, we just want to make sure that we're okay. And I know the last meeting I was at, the county attorney had made some edits and stuff, and it seemed fine. The first draft was open-ended, open to all kinds of interpretation. And my only worry is if we get, God forbid, we get a liberal sheriff or a liberal commission, you know, gun ranges they're gone. We've been around since 1946. I'm not going to speak against the regulations. I honestly don't have a problem with them the way the county attorney changed them. We've got not quite 200 acres at our range. And Mr. Cartassi, I respect you, but I'm going to tell you where you went wrong with your business. It's too small. You don't have enough land. You need a buffer. There's a NRA range book. It's about $130. It might be more now. Buy it, read it, know it. I'm not going to argue with Richard about noise because everything he said is true. He is the expert. I've known him for 30-some years. But I think the only reason we're even talking about it is because, you know, once again, all due respect, it's an insult when you run ads about, hey, you want to find out what it's like to be on a rooftop of Benghazi. I'm a service-disabled veteran. That's an insult. That's an insult to a lot of veterans. Nobody wants to know what it's like to be on the roof of Benghazi, a building in Benghazi. You don't want that. I would suggest not advertising like that. You don't have enough land to go full auto. I don't care what anybody tells you. You don't have enough land. I speak from experience, and I don't know if the sheriff's ever had any complaints about our range. We've been around for a long time. I've only been president since 2016, but I don't want to begrudge anybody having a gun range. That place was better off a church, and before that, I think it was Al's Fine Foods. It was better off a church. Find more land somewhere. Nobody's saying you can't have a gun range, but right there, too many people around you, too many good people, too many farmers. It's too small, unless you want to make it small arms or something like that. That's just my 2 cents. I wish you all the luck in the world.
So there you have the closing words from Jim Young, who is the president of the Durham Pistol and Rifle Range. I believe he said Haw River. And I think he's right. This gun range, the RAD Range, is on a property that is really not large enough. And what would be really great about this would be for he and the neighbors to really begin to realize, you know, maybe, Rudy, you need to think of selling that property to the surrounding community. I'm sure they would help you probably financially to get that out of their community. I would assume they would be somehow, shape, or form. But when you break off talks with people, there will be no resolving the issue. So let me encourage you to engage with the community, and the community engage with him. And obviously, the only solution to this is, making it safe. Yeah, they got to make it safe. But even the noise, I mean, I wouldn't buy a home in that area simply because of the gun range. And I would hope he would take Jim's advice, try to see what he could do with the neighborhood, see if they would be willing to help locate maybe the acreage that Jim pointed out, and go and develop one. Go and prepare a new gun range, and open that in a place where something you can be proud of, in the sense that and even the community can be proud of, and they could become a part of it without having to be fearful of their life or constantly being bombarded with the noise of gunfire. Well, if you've enjoyed this, let me encourage you to hit the like or the subscribe button. Also, leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this situation.